Well, good Sunday afternoon. Here at school, thinking about this week coming up and reflecting on last week as well. And I wanted to speak today on our literacy model, our workshop model, and its implementation, and how that has correlated to our MAP scores. As you know, Jesse Mattil was invited here to do some walkthroughs to look at our workshop model implementation. Um, uh, Mid-year to see where we were in terms of implementing the structure that we've discussed and trained teachers on since the beginning of the school year. So during our walkthroughs, we decided that we were going to do kind of like some walkthrough rotations, in which we would spend about 5 minutes in the classroom, then 5 minutes in the next, and 5 minutes in the next, all of the same grade level, and then rotate back through to get a clear picture on what was happening in each classroom at each time, looking for continuity between classrooms in each grade level, but also ensuring that we are in the classrooms at different times during guided reading so that we could get an accurate picture of the implementation happening at that classroom. So first thing we looked at was for structures and systems. Second thing was instruction. I'll get to that in just a minute. So some of the walkthrough evidence that we collected, we ran the gamut in terms of implementation throughout the building. Sometimes it was grade level specific, where one grade level was really rocking and rolling, and then one grade level may not be so rocking and rolling. So in other grade levels, there could be a class or two that needed a few tweaks. As you can see on the slide, there were some classrooms that could really be models for other schools, other classrooms in terms of the structure and systems and instruction that happens during this time. In other grade levels, it was implemented maybe 60 to 80%, where a couple tweaks here and there, it would be fully implemented 100%. And then there were a handful of classrooms that it was not being implemented in, or there were some scheduling issues that were not evident in the schedules, or that guided reading was really nearly non-existent, or it appeared that maybe because walkthroughs were coming through that it was planned at the last minute. But nevertheless, we're looking at growing from this point and moving forward. So the training that we've had so far, we had a half day with Jesse before school started. We had 2 PLCs with Jesse in September. And then during Greenwood University, Jeff has had about 10 teachers go through a workshop model training that was 5 weeks long. Vita did a closed reading PD on Gold Day that you could have implemented in your classrooms. Everyone received books like this for guided reading that helps plan for guided reading at various grade levels and at various reading levels for your students. So we've had the training, and it's now all about ensuring that we're 100% implemented across the board, every classroom from here on out until the end of the school year. Correlating that to MAP, of course, with winter MAP scores coming out recently, and then I spending some time Tuesday afternoon with a representative from MAP and kind of looking over our scores and getting some clarification on what I'm seeing. I said Tuesday night that we did have some proctoring issues and some motivation issues, but all in all, when you look at all of our data from K through 5, for the most part, that data can be is represented of our growth up until this point, unless seen otherwise at an individual student level using other assessments. So I looked at the student growth report, which is basically a snapshot of each grade level. It gives the expected growth, and then it gives a bar graph to show you what the actual growth was in terms of that classroom. So what I found was when I looked at my notes from our walkthroughs and looked at those MAP scores, the correlations were pretty much exactly the same on what we saw in terms of classrooms implementing workshop to its fullest, and using guided reading to its fullest, to the growth that we saw in these classrooms. So you can see the diamonds on this report. You can see that that's actually what the expected growth was supposed to be. And then the blue boxes are what the growth actually was during the winter session for MAP. I drew this red line, and it represented what I felt was implementation of guided reading at each grade level. That doesn't mean that one teacher or two teachers is not doing a fantastic job at a grade level, or all the teachers are not trying. We're all working hard and trying, but it's about focusing on working on and trying the right things to ensure that we're implementing this to the fullest. And when looking at data and comparing that to walkthroughs, the classrooms that are really implementing this to the fullest are showing the biggest growth. So what you need to have for successful guided reading is really a space and a plan to keep it simple. The structures, you need an organized classroom. You need a kidney table or a similar place for groups, a classroom library that's kid-friendly, that they can have access to books, and really just a print-rich classroom where students have access to text and print throughout the room. I did include a link here. It's from the Reading Recovery program at Clemson University, and this is about the physical environment for guided reading and how that affects the effectiveness of your guided reading. So here's some examples of some classrooms. I didn't go in every room to look, but I did find a few here where these are pictures taken today. And this classroom materials and you can even see it here, for interventions in guided reading are stored here. You can see the dry erase boards that are used for word work during this teacher's time. In this table, it's organized where there's easy access to materials. In this classroom, same way. And then here, this is an intermediate classroom. Leveled readers are behind the table with easy access, and then plans are laid out on this guided reading table, along with some reminders too for that time for that teacher. So these are just some examples. There's many great examples throughout the building, but this is these classrooms are ready to roll on Monday morning. And I'll even give Ms. Ackerman a special shout out that she already has her morning message and work, and everything is set up for Monday morning when students walk in the room. I'd say that there's not other rooms, but I did pay special attention to Ms. Ackerman's room when I came in there to look at her guided reading setup. So kudos to you, Sarah. All right, so a plan. The structure is in place. Now you need a plan. You need a mini lesson that's standard aligned, less than 20 minutes, that's on their grade level. Your guided reading lesson, which would be separate from that, is with that student focus group that's aligned with data that supports the standard and skill that they're working on at their instructional level. So those small groups should last about 20 minutes. I know some groups do about 30, but in between 20 and 30, you don't want to spend too much time with that group because you need other groups to be seen during that time as well. With our interventionists, our acceleration team, I know that they pull groups during this time. When those kids come back, you should work your schedule so that you're seeing them again, so they're getting a double dose of guided reading and small group reading instruction. Now, your literacy stations in the classroom, that's where they can respond to reading through writing. It's important that there's a purpose behind what they are working on in those literacy stations. And within those, there's independent reading happening. Let's also make sure that we're holding those students accountable for their independent reading during guided reading time. So just keep that in mind, that things need a purpose within those literacy stations, and that one thing that I saw were kids working on math during literacy, during guided reading in their stations. That's a great opportunity in math workshop, but in reading workshop during literacy time, we need to focus on literacy. So there are some resources. I've created a resource page in the Greenwood staff items. Let me get here. So in Greenwood staff items, there's a literacy folder. You have look now it wants to spin here. So in this literacy folder, you have the 2 PowerPoints from the beginning of the school year. You also have the tight and loose document that were shared at the beginning of the school year. These are the tight expectations. These are the loose expectations. You also have, and speaking of plans, some great lesson planning tools that I know teachers in this building are using, but this really helps keep you organized for your guided reading. So this is a guided reading plan that you would use for your students in those focus groups. These can all be accessed in this Greenwood Staff Items Literacy folder. Oops. So on our Basecamp site, I'm also including several links. This is the Reading Recovery link. This is our daily 5 link that's specific to upper grades. This is your Lexile. If you're looking at Lexile bands and trying to find the right book for students, especially in your small groups, this is a great resource here that was shared at the beginning of the year. Jan Richardson's guided reading site, where she provides lots of different resources for you to use, and then a Daily 5 site that can help you designing those literacy stations during your guided reading time. All right, so here's the video series that you can find that I showed. There was a video earlier that I showed. There's a lot more guided reading videos in the Reader Recovery site. I'm sorry. And then in the Jan Richardson book, this one here, on page 4 and 5, you have all of the topics that she has linked for videos. And that password for those videos is results. So, while I'm here on a Sunday, of course, I was listening to our church service while I was here, and he was talking about purpose on there. So I kind of hijacked one of his ideas during his sermon, which was talking about purpose. So, for example, this is a hairdryer. The purpose of a hairdryer is to dry hair. Obviously, I didn't use one today, but it has a specific purpose. Not to say that you can't use it for other things. People use hair dryers to dry paint or to dry something, the craft that they've been working on. That works, but that's not its intended purpose. And there may be other things that work better. But people have used a hair dryer for things like that. But also, if I wanted to use a hair dryer for writing a letter, that's not going to work because that's not its intended purpose. Or if I want to plug it in and use it for a water filtration device, that's definitely not the purpose of that hair dryer. So when we start thinking about what is the purpose of guided reading, why is it so important for us to do it a certain way and follow certain expectations and guidelines to a T? I mean, what is its real purpose? Well, in Jan Richardson's book, she says it's to help readers read confidently, proficiently, and independently as they process those increasingly challenging texts. And so teaching students at their instructional level during guided reading and having those focus groups with you in a very clear and organized lesson, you can see some really big gains from guided reading. That guided reading time should be sacred. just like your math time should be sacred as well. And with that purpose is really there for us to see some big improvement and have our students ready for the next grade level, whether it's K going into first, or second going to third, or fifth going to middle school. We have a moral imperative to make sure that our students are prepared, and this is a proven way to have our students prepared in reading. We're also going, I know several of you use a workshop for math. That's the next step in this, is once we are proficient at using this for literacy, then we'll be prepared to implement it for math. And it's a great way to teach math as well. So with that being said, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Watch some football, eat some wings, or rest, or whatever you do on Sundays. Enjoy that, and I can't wait to see everyone on Monday morning. Have a great night.